Hello, mystics. Welcome to our class on alchemy. Alchemy is a diverse and expansive topic that has fascinated the human mind for at least 7,000 years. It has many names, such as the great work, the divine activity, or our sacred philosophy. Alchemy is found across cultures and time. The basis of alchemy is that one element can be transformed into another element. You have probably heard the term turn lead into gold or searching for the philosopher's stone. These are alchemical terms that we will be explaining later. And the basis of alchemy. Alchemy is an ancient branch of natural philosophy, a philosophical and proto-scientific tradition that was historically practiced in China, India, in the Muslim world, and in Europe. Today I will be covering a brief history of alchemy and breaking down the process and some of its symbols for you. Before we dive in, it should be made very clear, there is no such thing as an objective interpretation of alchemy. But this does not pose a problem as long as the occultist or alchemist realizes that there are three parts of the study of alchemy: the scientific, the psychological, and the spiritual. Each study of alchemy has a different emphasis depending on the dimension or lens that you are studying from, whether it is scientific, psychological, or spiritual. But ultimately, alchemy contains all three of these dimensions, and to ignore one of them is only giving you a half understanding. Carl Jung, the famous psychoanalyst, did so much to bring the effectiveness of alchemy to our modern attention, but chose to reject the physical or scientific side completely. I'm not a scientist. My own interest in alchemy lies in the spiritual aspects and in the symbology. I will be paying more close attention to those in this lesson. More specifically, I will be looking at alchemy from a spiritual science and occult science, but there is so much more. Be sure to check the description of this video to find the sources and explore more. It's hard to give a precise timeline of alchemy because of the secrecy and nature of this work. We know that it has been practiced by both men and women in the fields of philosophy, science, medicine, and divinity. We also know that there were a lot of fakers or false prophets when it comes to alchemy. The etymology of alchemy. The word alchemy comes from the Arabic alchemia, al meaning the, but the meaning of the second word chemia is not completely clear. One popular idea is that the word is associated with the Egyptian word chem, signifying black, relating to the description of Egypt as the land of black soil. Some say that this defines alchemy as the Egyptian art or the black arts. Other scholars will argue that the word most likely came from the Greek word chemia, meaning casting or fusing of metal. Alchemy is based primarily on one concept, that elements can be transformed into another element, usually gold. There are three different ways of achieving this kind of alchemy according to Manly P. Hall. The first way is taking various base substances by the art of transmutation and turning them into gold. This is a scientific outlook. Two is the transmutation of artificial stones so that they may become genuine or precious stones. And thirdly, the creation of a universal medicine which all diseases could be treated, and this medicine itself having the primary objective of transmuting elements within the human body. Many of you are probably familiar with the Philosopher's Stone as a Harry Potter plotline, but in fact, the Philosopher's Stone was known as the elixir of life. The stone, in fact, is not really a stone at all. It's actually described as a powder or wax that could be rendered into a liquid. It was believed that the Philosopher's Stone was not only an agent of metallic transformation, but the very secret of transformation itself in both the physical and spiritual worlds. But it is made very clear that alchemy has just as much to do with self-mastery as it does with the mastery of the physical laws of nature. Throughout history, it seems that there were many alchemists who failed at creating pure gold from a base substance. What if that wasn't the true intent of alchemy at all? According to Manly P. Hall, the purpose of alchemy was illumination and inner liberation from your own darkness. He writes, "We can assume that the original purpose of alchemy was the perfection of man, the restoration of the human being to his divine estate. Ancient alchemists believed that by putting together all of the themes of the believer into one new alchemical fusion, that there would no longer be severed parts and only a final essence. That is the Philosopher's Stone. This process was held secret in many ancient secret societies, such as the Eleusinian Mysteries, the Knights Templar, and in our modern world, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And these are just a few names. The process of alchemy allows you to purify your soul and allow you to ascend to the next level of consciousness. This quote from Manly P. Hall: "The secret art of internal transmutation by the processes of meditation, prayer, and various disciplines upon the mind and emotions." It's important to understand that the alchemist was not breaking away from the rules of life, but rather following nature's laws. But what are these laws? Alchemists learn through symbolism. If you were to look at a manuscript for alchemy, you would not see words. You would see strange symbols like dragons and lions. Why? Because alchemy was the divine or spiritual science and occult science. And the knowledge to read these manuscripts required you to be initiated into secret orders. That is how you would learn from mouth to ear. By means of symbolism, the human mind is expanded and forced to focus its attention in various mysteries in attempts to solve them. This is an illumination of consciousness. You are unlocking the door to greater awareness and consciousness. But the symbol can only be unlocked by the interpreter or alchemists themselves. Nobody else can do it for you. These strange symbols are adapted from nature, mathematics, anatomy, astronomy, and in various forms. They appeared slightly modified all over the world, from ancient Europe, China, India, and etc. In Chinese alchemy, it's tied to music, and the musical scale represents the harmony of life. The ancient Greeks of Pythagoras combined all of their cosmology into a mathematical formula, never to be taken as a serious problem, but rather as a symbol, a mantra, or statement to be followed. These symbols are multi-layered. Think of it as a Rubik's Cube. On one side, we see colors yellow, red, and blue. But if we turn the cube upside down, we have an entirely different view of the cube with different colors. And because of this, the symbol's meaning will change. A symbol's meaning will be drawn out of the alchemist at the level of consciousness they are functioning at, meaning we can only see one side of the cube, but through diligent work, meditation, and ritual, we are able to move that cube and unlock the deeper meaning and raise our awareness and consciousness. One alchemical design shows a deep forest at night with footprints left behind in the dirt and a wise old man with a lamp following the footsteps. This implies that nature holds the key to solving the mysteries. Trees are very important in alchemy and often include 7 branches representing the 7 planets in astrology and the 7 aspects of the human soul. The sun represents man's individuality. The moon represents man's imagination. Mercury represents man's mental alertness or communication. Venus represents man's emotions. Jupiter represents man's judgment, and Saturn represents man's discrimination, philosophical thoughtfulness, and realization. So with all of these different planets and parts of the self, we are finally presented with the primary problem of alchemy. How does one reconcile all of these different attributes and aspects of the personality? The first step in uniting these principles is that the individual must reduce each of these symbolic planetary elements to its primary nature. In other words, we are purifying the substances. The alchemist is seeking to achieve soul mastery over matter and over the body. Every individual has a seed of eternity or a spark of divinity in themselves. All of the elements of the great alchemical experiment exist in you. This seed is man's immortality, the substance of his own divinity. Call it a soul if you like. And through the careful care of working through each element of the soul, one can reach that higher consciousness, the recognition of its own divinity without blemish or folly. But there is one more step. Once the individual gains the powers of transmutation within himself, he must become an active agent of transmutation in society. This is what we call a sage. The final end is working towards bringing healing and justice to the world to help others recognize their own divinity. Now, I cannot share with you all of the ancient secrets of alchemy as I am bound by oath, but here are some helpful tips. Take care of your body. The physical aspect is incredibly important to your function. This also includes your aura. You must maintain careful boundaries with your aura, or as modern science defines it, your human biofield. This can be damaged by alcohol or narcotics, but also by the intensity of negative attitudes and thoughts. This is where the mental mind or psychological aspect of alchemy comes to play. The chronic warrior, chronic complainer, or an individual with low self-worth are setting up painful patterns within their mind and their aura that must be overcome. This is also a chemical vessel. Those thoughts lead to the release of specific hormones like cortisol, which make it difficult for you to come to a place of peace. This is all part of the great experiment of alchemy. Remember, the goal of alchemy is to balance and cleanse and purify your body, mind, and soul. Balancing your chakras or planetary energies within your body is a helpful start to your alchemical journey. But back to the question that everyone thinks about when it comes to alchemy. Can gold actually be manufactured? Manly P. Hall says yes, but the alchemist must be an adept or someone who has already completed their inner alchemy. This person must be pure in order to create purity. Manly P. Hall also maintains that worldly gain is not the end goal of alchemy. This was a misunderstanding by ancient kings. If you are interested in the ceremonial tradition, please message me on Discord or on Patreon, and I'm happy to point you in the right direction. This is a very expansive subject that I can only give you a small window into. Again, if you're interested, check the sources below in this description. And of course, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them on Discord. Just tag me at Pythian Priestess. And until next time, Occultorum, stay magical.